book lovers, it is G-Swizz here, and I'm here today with a TBR for the first quarter of 2024. I know I always say this, but I love the first part of the year, like when the year is starting up, because I love looking at this year and planning my reading. And I specifically decided for this TBR that I was going to achieve some goals I set last year, as well as look at February/Valentine's period, and also look at reading a series I kind of know is going to be a favorite, but I want to read it in the lead up to a Fairy Loot special edition sale, because I think it's kind of ridiculous how many special editions I'm collecting of this book series and I still have not yet read it. There are a few goals I would like to achieve with this TBR specifically. I know I'm making a lot of TBR videos this time of year. I'm making series TBRs, I'm making manga TBRs, I'm making a 24 books I want to read in 2024 TBR, all that stuff etc. However, what separates this TBR video from the others is that I'm specifically focusing on the first 3 months of this year. And I'm not too sure if you guys noticed, but my self-destructing TBR, the one that I posted at the end of March last year, yeah, that self-destructs at the end of this quarter. So I need to get on to reading some of those books, or else I have to unhaul them. So this is kind of urgent. I guess without further ado, let's get straight into the TBR. I will talk about the books that I want to read within this quarter and why. The first series I would like to pick up within the first quarter of this year is the Hell's Gate Guardian series by Ivy Asher and Raven Kennedy. I have wanted to read this for a while. As soon as I found out that Raven Kennedy collaborated with Ivy Asher, that's when I wanted to read it. I think this has been on my mental TBR for 2 years, but it has been on my physical TBR for almost a year now. I have all the books. So I recently started thinking about January 2023 and how much paranormal romance I read this time last year, and I really enjoyed the paranormal romance I was reading. I was reading The Covenant Saga by Jennifer L. Armentrout and The Unearthly series by Laura Falasa, and I loved those two series so much. And I was just looking everywhere on my bookshelves to see if there was another bingeable series that just so happens to be paranormal romance that I could read from my collection, and I just so happened to see that the Hell's Gate Guardian series is still available for me to read, so I do want to pick this one up. And I specifically want to pick the Hell's Gate Guardian series up because this time last year I had a really fun time with some good paranormal romance. There's not really much else to it. I do want to read it in the lead up to Halloween of 2024, and I mean, I know Halloween's kind of far away, but I can read good paranormal romance any time of year, and I'm deciding that I want to do that in January. So I put the Hell's Gate Guardian series on my January TBR, and I plan to get to it sometime within this quarter if I can't finish the series within January specifically. And let's move on to some Valentine's Day reads. I would finally like to read the Well-Met series this year, specifically for February. For some reason, I did not pick these up in February of last year, and I received these just before February of last year. So like, I should have read this during the Valentine's Day period last year, but I did not, and I still have these on my shelves. And something that I personally love about the month of February is that February is my excuse to go all out with the rom-coms. I love reading rom-coms during the month of February. In February of last year, I read around 35 rom-coms, and I really enjoyed that reading experience, and I want to go all out again this year, so I cannot wait. But I would like to add the Well-Met series to my TBR for February. It's one that I've been meaning to get to for a while. I just haven't been personally motivated, and I know that I should pick these up because once I do, I know I'm going to love them just as much as everyone else. But for some reason, I don't know, when I see a popular romance author that I absolutely love and adore already, I will prioritize them over a new romance author. Like, I've never read anything by Jenna DeLuca before, but if I see like a Tessa Bailey new release or a Chloe Leese new release, or who else, Christina Lauren, I will usually prioritize their books over new romance authors. And I really need to change that because I hear that the Well-Met series is amazing and I just want to dive into it. So I really hope I can read this one for February this year, and I'll let you guys know how I go. As I'm filming this right now, I've not yet received my Afterlight exclusive edition set, but yeah, I also got those as well. So I have 2 editions of this book series and I still have not yet read it. Kind of ridiculous. I know, I need to get onto it. And another romantic contemporary series I would love to prioritize this Valentine's month is Chloe Leese's new series. So I've got Two Wrongs Make a Right and Better Hate Than Ever. This is the Wilmot Sisters series. I don't know if this series is going to go beyond 2 books, but there are 2 books currently out in this series, and I just need to read more by Chloe Leese because I loved their Bergman Brothers series. And I'm just hoping, fingers crossed, that the Wilmot Sisters series will have the same quirk and charm that the Bergman Brothers series did. I'm also really hoping that the family dynamic in the series is really good as well. I don't know, I'm just really appreciative of the brotherly dynamic we see in the Bergman Brothers. And yes, we do have two sisters in the Bergman family as well. So I love their overall dynamic, but I think we'll be following sisters throughout the series. I'm actually not sure if there's going to be like a brother within the Wilmot Sisters series to be revealed eventually. I really don't know. I haven't read any of the series yet. I am looking forward to, though. I really hope I love the series just as much as I love the Bergman Brothers series. If I don't, then that's understandable, because the Bergman Brothers series, in my personal opinion, is hard to be topped. I am kind of going into these books with the expectation that they are not going to impress me as much as the Bergman Brothers / Siblings series, but I am hoping that I can get something similar out of the Wilmot Sisters. I also really like these covers. I think that these covers are really cool. I feel as if they reveal more about the vibe of these stories than the Bergman siblings covers do, so I do appreciate that. I am just hoping that these are gonna be my highlight of the Valentine's month. And what is Valentine's month without a little Cupid? Right here in my hand, I have the Heart Hassle series by Raven Kennedy. This is the bind up by the Bookish Box, which I really like, but I do like the repackaged editions that Penguin recently did. I might actually get those, but I want to justify getting those by actually reading this series, maybe. I have decided to save this series for February specifically because it very much suits the season, am I right? So in this specific bind up of the Heart Hassle collection, I have Signs of Cupidity, Bonds of Cupidity, Crimes of Cupidity, and finally For the Love of Cupidity, which I believe is a novella. There's also another spin-off book, I believe, that came out sometime after the full series came out, so I might read that. I don't know. I don't actually have the physical copy of it yet, and I don't know if there's an audiobook of that one yet, so I think I'm just gonna stick to what is in this bind up for now. I can't wait to read this series because I've wanted to read it for a while. I think ever since I heard of Raven Kennedy and I read Guild, even though Guild is definitely not one of my favorite books of all time, and in my personal opinion, I don't think it would be right to judge Raven Kennedy's books based on that one book in the series because Guild is dark. It was not fun. However, ever since I started the Plated Prisoner series, because I am still intrigued in the Plated Prisoner series, I'm just waiting for it to be closer to actually finishing. The series recently got extended, so technically now I'm pushing my read of that series out. Ever since I kind of got to know Raven Kennedy and her backlist, I saw that she released this series, the Heart Hassle series, and then I saw the rave reviews for it, and that's when I knew that I needed to pick the series up and read it for myself. And I just waited until I finally got my physical copy of the series for me to save it for February. So I'm planning to read the series in the month of February. I can't wait because I am going to be reading so many rom-coms during February. This series, I believe, is a fantasy, and I definitely think that this is going to be a great breakaway from all those romantic contemporaries. And moving on to some required reading for the month of March, I need to finally read The Night Duet and its novella. I need to read Carissa Broadbent's Serpent and the Wings of Night and The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King, and maybe Six Scorched Roses. I think I'm going to read this in between the two books because I believe this book came out between the two books. However, I'm unsure as to whether or not I'm meant to read it before or after the second book. So, the Fairy Loot special editions will be dropping in March. And as I'm filming this video, I have pre-ordered the Bookish Box special edition. I got the traditionally published editions of these books. These are the indie hardbacks, by the way. I have the Arcane Society exclusive edition set, and I have these. And now I really want the Fairy Loot special edition set. And I get it. I know that Carissa Broadbent is a favorite author based on The War of Lost Hearts. I can understand why I'm justifying purchasing all these editions, but I actually now need to read this series. It's getting ridiculous. I specifically waited for 2024 to pick this series up because I wanted to make sure that The War of Lost Hearts got its own spotlight in my top 23 books of 2023, and I also want to give The Night Duet its own individual spotlight. But I just think that it would be very appropriate if I read this duet sometime early March before I decide to purchase the Fairy Loot special editions. At the moment, that is my plan. I'm looking forward to achieving that goal, hopefully, and I'm hoping to get that Fairy Loot set. Yeah, fingers crossed I do, because demand is really high at the moment for anything Carissa Broadbent related. Like, I'm still wrapping my head around the fact that the War of Lost Hearts series by Carissa Broadbent in the Bookish Box special editions sold out, and they weren't even universally loved designs. A lot of people love Carissa, and I love Carissa already. I can't wait to read the series. I reckon it's going to be a favorite. So now I'm going to be moving on to some self-destructing books. These books I put on my TBR that will self-destruct at the beginning of April because I did post that Self-Destructing TBR at the very end of March last year, so I want to read some of these. And before I proceed with the books that I've picked out of the TBR, I am aware that I did pick a bunch of books, but there are just some books that I'm not motivated to read. But these ones I want to kind of push myself to read before I get to April. So the first out of the bunch is Defy the Stars by Claudia Gray. I was gonna initially read the entire trilogy in order to work out whether or not I would keep it. I'm deciding to just read the first book. I mean, I'm probably gonna binge read the series anyway, but I am just gonna decide based on the first book whether or not it is worth keeping, because honestly, I do think that that is fair enough, and I do have a lot of other books on my TBR at the moment, and there are so many other books I would like to prioritize between now and the end of March, so I'm deciding to just read Defy the Stars and to see how I go, to see if I am compelled enough to continue on. I mean, it's been around 4 years or 5 since I read Defy the Stars. I actually reread this book. I have almost forgotten the plot completely, but I actually started the first chapter of this book and I was like, oh my goodness, this is what the book is about again. I am excited. However, the reason why I put this series on my TBR specifically was because I purchased the third book like years after I had read the first book, or reread the first book rather, and I have a complete series on my shelves and it's great. I love the covers. However, I have not been prioritizing them the way that I've been prioritizing all like the new adult romantasy on my shelves, all the adult romance on my shelves, all the other books like the manga and stuff. I've not been prioritizing this series the way that I would prioritize other genres and age categories now. So that's why I needed to put it on a self-destructing TBR to motivate me to actually pick this book series up to see whether or not it is worth keeping or not. I do want to continue on with this first book. If I don't love it, then I might have to consider unhauling the other 2 books. I do remember finding this first book okay, but if I find it compelling enough this time around, then I will just consider keeping this book series around for now. And the next book that I have to mention that I did put on my self-destructing TBR that I want to see if I can get to by the end of this quarter is Jade Fire Gold by June CL10. This one's a hard one because I'm just not motivated to pick this book up whatsoever. I'm not hearing rave reviews, but I'm also not hearing bad reviews. I hear that it's good, but I don't hear people screaming about this book these days. I do want to read it. I do want to see what the hype was about like a few years ago, but I'm currently just not motivated to pick this book up. I don't know if anyone has specifically recommended it to me, so it's really hard to stay motivated about this one specifically, especially because I have no attachment to the characters yet. I have no attachment to the author yet. I do want to give it a chance, especially because I went out of the way to purchase the Owl Crate exclusive edition and it's signed. I can't guarantee I'm going to read this by the end of the quarter, but I'm putting it on here anyway because I think that it at least deserves a chance, maybe? I'll see if I can give it a chance. And last but certainly not least, the time is approaching. It's time I bite the bullet and I finally do it. If you've been following me for around 3 years now, or if you've ever watched my Remnant Chronicles reading vlog, you would know why I am hesitant to pick Dance of Thieves up. I'm trying to bite my tongue right now. I'm trying not to talk about Prince Rafferty, but I did just mention him. Oh my goodness. Anyway, I know that this book series does not follow him and it does not follow his toxicity. So we're good there. But I'm still nervous about going into this book series because the thought of his name and the thought of what happened in The Beauty of Darkness still very much triggers me. So I'm hoping to kind of go into this knowing that I've somewhat moved on, but I'm still a little bit triggered by it. So I'm just hoping, fingers crossed, I don't read this book in a very angry way. Like, I don't want to be angered while I read this book. I actually really want to enjoy this book, and I do love this world, and I do love the concept of the series. I loved the concept of the Remnant Chronicles, and I loved the first 2 books in the series. It's just, it went downhill in the 3rd book, and it was just really sad to see a character that I admired so much just be toxic and not cool. I just don't like how things went down in that final book, and I feel as if it did not even need to be 700 pages. Anyway, I'm just mad about that last book. That is why I've been putting this series off for a while, but I had to put Dance of Thieves on my self-destructing TBR because the series was collecting dust on my shelves. It was just taking up space, and obviously I need to make sure that I'm going to read the books that I collect on my shelves. I did purchase this book series before reading the Remnant Chronicles, so I mean, I've got to be fair to myself in that way. I did want to binge this series after reading the Remnant Chronicles initially, but I've had to really distance myself from my read of the Remnant Chronicles to hopefully enjoy the series. I really want to enjoy Dance of Thieves for what it is. I hear that the couple in the series is kind of better. I know that people appreciate the original couple or the original trio in the first 3 books. Like, I get it. However, I'm definitely hoping that the romantic dynamic in Dance of Thieves and in Vow of Thieves is much healthier than than the original dynamic that we had in the Remnant Chronicles. I'm hoping that nothing goes downhill. I'm hoping that I'm not going to be catfished by this first book and then go into the second book and realize that it was all a lie. Because honestly, that is how I felt with The Beauty of Darkness. I felt like I was catfished because I thought that Prince Rafferty was good. And then the third book revealed him to be a complete jerk. I need to speak to a therapist about this fictional character because he's still gotten on my nerves and I have not moved on. So fingers crossed I get to this duet this quarter, because if I don't, it's going away. I'm never going to be able to experience this duet. I have to push myself to read this duet within this quarter, or else it goes into the on hold pile and I will probably never get to experience it. So I'm gonna do it. We'll see how we go. So I guess that's gonna be it for this video today, book lovers. If you happen to stay to the end of the video, leave me the red heart emoji. And if you happen to enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet already joined the amazing community of book lovers. And also, I have social medias. I'm at gswizzelbooks on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm also GOODREADS. That's www.goodreads.com/gswizzle. And finally, I'm at TikTok. My gswizzle on TikTok if you want to follow me there for some bookish content. I love you, book lovers, and I will see you later. Peace.
Started out with half and I flipped it in a double.